What was the cost of following Jesus? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Luke on Walking Through the Bible. If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Luke chapter 9. We're going to be reading from verses 57 to 62. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Luke chapter 9, beginning at verse 57. Now it happened, as they journeyed on the road, that someone said to him, "Lord, I will follow you wherever you go." And Jesus said to him, "Foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." Then he said to another, "Follow me." But he said, "Lord, let me first go and bury my father." Jesus said to him, "Let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and preach the kingdom of God." And another said, "Lord, I will follow you, but let me first go and bid them farewell who are at my house." But Jesus said to him, "No one having put his hand to the plow and looking back is fit for the kingdom of God." In our last lesson, we discussed the fact that Jesus is setting his face towards Jerusalem because the time of his crucifixion was drawing closer. That doesn't mean that it was weeks away, but according to some feasts given to us in the book of John, we're about 6 months away from the crucifixion. We're in the time of Jesus' ministry known as the Perean ministry. The reason it is known as this is because much of it occurs in Perea, an area that was on the east side of the Jordan River, southeast of Galilee, and south of Decapolis. Had you crossed the Jordan River moving west, you would be in either Samaria or Judea. As Jesus was leaving Galilee, he passed through Samaria, and when he came to one town, they wouldn't let Jesus stay because he was heading towards Jerusalem. The animosity between the Samaritans and the Jews was such that this type of reaction was common, which is going to make Jesus' parable in chapter 10 all the more striking. Due to Jesus' treatment in this Samaritan town, though, James and John wanted to call down fire from heaven, just as Elijah did in 2 Kings 1. Jesus said that that was not his purpose. He came to save people, not destroy them. Coming now to verse 57, we do have a story that we covered in Matthew 8, 18 to 22, except that Matthew and Luke place the story at two completely different points in time. In Matthew 8, Jesus is in Galilee, and the story that Matthew presents before and after this section of Matthew 8 fits perfectly together. Luke, on the other hand, presents this story as happening during Jesus' Perean ministry, which would be sometime later. How can we reconcile these two different accounts? Well, first off, there is nothing to prevent us from saying that similar stories didn't happen on multiple occasions. The feeding of the 4,000 and 5,000 are two separate events, even though they sound similar. Someone coming up and saying that they're wanting to follow Jesus occurred frequently, so even though Jesus' response may have been similar, it would have been so because the situation had repeated itself. But another thing we have to consider as well is that the Gospels are not always giving us a chronology, something that is even true in Luke. Sometimes stories are grouped together in themes and pieced together that way. Both Matthew and Luke are vague as to when this took place. Matthew 8:18 said, "And when Jesus saw great multitudes about him, he gave a command to depart to the other side." While Luke 9:57 says, "Now it happened as they journeyed on the road." Neither account necessarily connected this event with the one that came before or after it. Therefore, to know which one is speaking thematically and which one is speaking more chronologically, we cannot say for certain, although I lean more towards Matthew speaking more chronologically on this one. But again, where and when this takes place is not the point of the story. The point is about the cost of being a disciple of Jesus. While Jesus was walking on the road, a man came up and told Jesus that he would follow him wherever he went. Quite admirable. We might even think that Jesus would want a man like this. However, Jesus knew the heart of this man and so told him the hard truth, that he didn't know where Jesus was going. If he expected Jesus to stay at the nicest houses or eat the best food, he would be disappointed, for even the animals have their own places to stay at night. Jesus, however, owned no land and therefore had to rely on the generosity of others or sleep under the stars. From what we read, this man didn't follow Jesus. As Jesus continued walking, this time he told a man to follow him. This man too was willing, but said that first he must go and bury his father. Whether this meant that his father had just died or whether it meant that he would wait to follow Jesus until after his father had died is unimportant. For what is important is that this man wanted to wait to be Jesus' disciple. Jesus told the man to let the dead bury their dead. This seems like an odd statement, for how can dead people bury other dead people? Jesus, however, was using the word dead in two different senses. The first dead refers to those who are physically alive but spiritually dead in sin, while the second dead refers to those who are physically dead. What Jesus is saying then is that he was teaching the things that will make you spiritually alive. So if you want to hear them, you've got to follow me now. Leave those who do not want to follow after me and my teachings behind, and let them deal with the dead. Procrastination is always the enemy of those who want to follow Christ. After this second man, we have a third, which, like the first, wants to follow Jesus, except he first wants to go back and say goodbye to his family. Perhaps this man didn't want to delay as long as the second man did, but this man's attachments to others would get in the way of following Jesus. You can almost see this man going back and telling his family what he was going to do and then have them talk him out of going. Jesus said that one is not fit for the kingdom of God if they put their hand to the plow, determined to follow Jesus, and then look back. Remember Lot's wife. She looked back after being told not to while leaving Sodom and Gomorrah and was turned into a pillar of salt. There is a cost to following Jesus. We will likely not be rich. We will have to give up our time and sever some of our relationships in order to follow Jesus. Is it worth it? Yes, for eternity in heaven is far better than fleeting happiness on this earth. With that, our time is up for today. Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Luke chapter 10, verses 1 to 12, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.